Welcome to Word Module 1 Textbook Project. This is only for practice. It will not record a grade into Blackboard. First of all, you need to navigate to course content in your Blackboard course. Scroll down until we find Assignments, the folder. We open up the Word folder and we'll scroll down, and your reading is the creating and modifying a flyer. And I believe that I may have that already pulled up. Your table of contents probably looks like this as you start. And of course you need to read through this. Even if you are very well versed with Microsoft Word, you'll probably find some terminology, concepts, and some skills that maybe you've never used before. So as you're reading through this, don't forget that you can use your highlighters, and you can, I would definitely highlight things as I go through. If I want to know what this is, I can highlight just as we've learned before. And, as you've been reading your textbook all along. And then as you're going through the textbook, you're going to be in, a little introduction here. It's going to show you the finished product. Please don't try to type your project, your practice project. This is just a practice project from the textbook. I call it a tutorial lesson because it's walking you through the lesson and teaching you as you go. But don't try to create it from this picture because you'll not get all of the things that you need. The one thing that I have a gripe about, or complaint, is that the numbers that they use to indicate the process that you're going to go through would be numbers, white numbers in orange boxes. When you actually get over to where you're supposed to enter something, it's the same orange box with a white number in it. So I would suggest that you would click and highlight those steps as you're going through. Now I will say this, you don't start with a blank document. Since we're using SAM to grade, even our textbook exercises can be graded this way. We're probably going to skip this part. We do want to make sure that print layout button is, set up so that we can see what we need to see on our screen. And like I said, you'll be going through here, you'll have words like document window, what are scroll bars, status bars, the ribbon, and they're going to teach you about those different things. One of the items I'd like to highlight for just a second are contextual tools. Whenever you have like a picture selected in Word, it'll bring up a contextual tab, and this one would be Picture Tools, Format tab. And only while that object, or in this case a picture, is selected will this contextual tab be available. As soon as you click off the image and you no longer have handles on that image, then this contextual tab will disappear. And as I said, you can go through here and you can learn what a screen tip is. And some of you know these things, but you might not know what they're called. The Tell Me box, for one thing. That's a new one on me. I mean, it just was always the little place where you could search for something with a little search icon. So now they call it the Tell Me box. And it's bumped up right in here next to what you're looking for. Okay. Now, quick access toolbar, I will tell you a little bit about that as we go, how you can add stuff to it. The mini toolbar that pops up after you've selected some text or something to work with, you can have a little mini toolbar that has the most frequently used buttons on it. Shortcut menus, all these things are things that you may know how to use and probably knew what to call them. The key tips, this is like if you held down the Alt key, too long, you would get these letters and numbers that would help you navigate through your menu system without a mouse or pointing device. So finally we get to something else they want us to look at. And again, I tend to highlight a little bit of this as I go along. It's great for studying when you come back to this and have to study. And these are some things they want us to make sure we have set up before we actually start typing. We're going to change the margins to narrow. They talk a little bit about character widths. And finally, we get to type something. So this is where I'm going to get out of the textbook. I have the instructions in the printed book, which is a little easier for me to follow, not having to split screens. So for this purpose, I'm going to close out the reading, and I'm going to go, don't forget you have to do the training on your own. But if it says textbook project here, then that means that we have something to do for practice. So I'm going to use the textbook project for Module 1 as a practice. And we looked at this very quickly during the Getting Started with SAM project that we did very early in the semester. Now, I do want to point out to you that this project is not compatible with Office for Macs. They recommend that you use the Office for Windows to complete the project. And that's perfectly, fine, but if you're a Mac user, you don't get a chance to really learn all the bells and whistles from this lesson. I suggest that you go ahead and do it anyway on your Mac, and anything that isn't available to you from your Mac, try something else. Go ahead and submit it just to get the practice in about submitting an assignment. Again, this is a practice. But Sam will go through and grade it for you and let you know what you did, and he'll give you a report. I do want to point out, too, that if we're using SAM start files, which we are, we don't start working from our textbook really until page 10. Now, also note you have 3 attempts. So you can do the hands-on exercise or the actual project for grade, submit it, and then come back and look at the report, make any corrections to your original document. Don't make them inside of the report. You're not submitting the report for corrections, you're using it to help you correct your original document. So we're going to click on Start. Now, if you're using the textbook for a textbook project, obviously they have the reading available to you. We have a start file, but this is not the final name of the file they want, so I'm going to hold off on that. And we also have a support file. My recommendation is that you go ahead and click on Continue first, and then highlight your name for the real name of this file. Don't get the .docx, don't get the file extension, but highlight that text, and you can either right click on it and choose copy, or do a Control-C combination on the keyboard. Then when you go back on the back button and you click on your start file, it should be asking us where to save it, and I'm going to go to my flash drive, and I have several different classes here. I'm just going to use my CIT 105 one just as my test run, and I want to create a new folder on it called Word, and I'm just going to put all my things that are Word inside this Word folder. So I'm going to want to open up Word. Now, as I told you a while ago, this is not the proper name, but remember we copied it from from the next screen. So while this is selected, you could right click in here and choose to paste it, or you could do a Control-V to paste. Now it has the correct name in it. It's going to the correct folder in a new folder that we created on, in my case, my flash drive in this example, and I'll save it. And I could go ahead and open it up down here. I'm using Google Chrome for this one. I also need to get a support file, so I might as well go ahead and get that as well. So I'm going to click on this. It should remember where I downloaded my start file to work with. Now, if Sam needs to have the ability to download, always say allow, because you need to get all the files you need from Blackboard. From Cengage. So I just want to make sure that it's going into the correct folder, and I don't change the name, I just save it. Now I'm going to open up the file that is my start file, and you'll notice that there seems to be nothing in here. I promise you there is. Even though you don't see your name anywhere in here, they have embedded your identification with this file. So if you did all the work, and let's say this one was for a grade, it's practice, but let's pretend, and you did all the work and you got your 100 points on it, and then your friend says, hey, I didn't have time to do the homework, can I just copy your file? Don't do it. Because anybody who's caught copying, whether you're the person that shared it or the person who copied it, will get a 0 for that assignment as a first offense in my classes, and the second time it happens, you're failing the course. I don't care if you're a straight A student. You do it, you fail it. Okay? So don't be tempted. You can kind of help and point each other, this is how we do this thing over here. And, show somebody, but you're not giving them your file. And they're having to do their own work. So even though we don't see it, there is identifying information in this file that's embedded that lets us know, and it will let me know if you copied yours from somebody else or if they shared it with you. So everybody involved gets the goose egg, the 0. Now, going to the instructions in my textbook, I believe we are supposed to go down here to make sure we're in print layout view. That's the view tab down in the lower right hand corner of the status bar of Word. And then we're supposed to go up here to the view tab on the ribbon. We want to make sure that the zoom is 100%, which mine was initially coming in. They don't want us to show the ruler, so I'm going to turn the ruler off. I like my ruler, I want it back, but anyway. And I'm just going to tell you right now, they're going to immediately tell you to switch to page width, so you might as well go ahead and switch to page width. Then they want you to go to the Home tab, and they want you to turn on the Show Hide, which is the backwards paragraph symbol in the paragraph group. That's actually a proofreader's mark, meaning start a new paragraph. So we're going to turn that on. So now we can see that we haven't hit the enter key, and we got a blinking insertion point there. We also need to go to Layout and to Margins in the Page Setup group and change those to narrow, 1/2 inch all around. Now we can type the words for the headline, wash your hands. Exclamation point, enter. Next, we're going to type in, that's the headline. And again, you need to make sure that you are following the steps in the textbook if you're working through this. You need to be reading through this if you don't think you have to do the hands-on. You still need to read through the steps and look at the pictures, and also read the concepts parts inside these chapters that talk to you about, what are the 3 parts of a flyer? Does color play any relevance in the message that I'm trying to distribute to the audience? So there's a lot of things in this chapter, and in all the chapters or modules that you do or use, that will have some interesting additional information, which could show up on a test. So we have our first real paragraph, if you will, with sentences. Of course, wash your hands is a sentence. You'll notice how word wraps around to the next line in this paragraph. And then we hit the enter key to start another paragraph. They talk a little bit about the spell checker in here. They'll talk about the fact that the red wavy line has always been a misspelled word or a word that's not in the dictionary for this program. And they used to have green squiggly lines if it was a grammar problem. Now they have a double blue underline. So the text might have been maybe incorrect grammatically, misuse of homophones, which, W-H-I-C-H, is like which way do I go, whereas which, W-I-T-C-H, might be who you're going to dress up for Halloween. Okay? So, those are homophones, and it might see that you're basically using the words out of context. And then the gold dotted underline indicates that word can present a suggestion for more concise writing. Now, I haven't noticed it in Word per se, but I have noticed it doing something similar to that, especially with the double blue underline in my copy of Outlook, which is my email manager. And so they've turned on that feature in Outlook, and it's, you know, sometimes I like it and sometimes I'm not crazy about it, because it always wants to get rid of my little prepositions in my document, which I know it's making me more concise, which I should strive to be, correct? So this next group has a little question by itself, how, and then we're going to list these, and these are sentences. We're going to make some misspelled words. So we can use the spell checker and grammar checker. Now, I want to point out a little something else here. I've been seeing this happening for several years now in some of my classes. After an open parentheses, there's not a space before you start typing the first word within the parentheses. The same thing holds true with the closing parentheses. There's not a space between the last letter or a punctuation and then the closing parentheses. And there has to be a space after it. And in the case of this being embedded inside of a sentence, obviously there has to be a space between, in this case, the word hands and the open parenthesis. So I just want to point that out to you in case you're, you know, little rusty on those grammar issues that we run into every now and again. Okay, the next one is scrub. Hands, and they're going to use the wrong word for here. This is like playing golf. And let's see, rinse, soap. Oh, my fingers are dyslexic today. Okay, so they had us make some typos here. My spell checker must be working really well, but apparently it's not catching for, or it's misused. Okay, so I'm going to accidentally change this to will, because that's going to drive it crazy. Usually, there we go. So I'm just making some other mistakes, okay? In this section, they show you how you can right-click on a mistake and find the correct word. Clean instead of clean. It's not going to stop on for, but I'm going to see if we can't get the spell checker to find it, maybe. It's not this, it should be capturing this of in here, because really it should say rinse soap off hands. We're just used to putting that preposition in there. Dry hands well, which was okay. The way you had it before was correct. I just wanted to get some double underline going on here. And then the or, the repetition of a word. Now I'm going to right click on that one because it's easier to say delete repeated word than it does to do it in the spell checker, grammar checker. Alright, now I'm going to put my insertion point in front of wet hands so I can run through this. And your review tab has your spelling and grammar checker button on it. The very beginning of the proofing group. You can also add that to your quick access toolbar, which I have done already. Spelling and grammar. I'll take it off and then I'll come back and put it on. I also like to put on my quick print and my print preview and print buttons because they're handy. So we've got print preview. Oh, the check accessibility, that's good too, to make sure that you are ADA compliant with documents that, especially that you might be posting on the internet. Okay, so I've got myself in the location, I've added the spell checker up here, or I've gone to review and I'm going to click on it here on the ribbon, either way. So it knows that there's something wrong with dry hands will be using, and it thinks I need to have this little helping verb here, you know, linking. So it thinks that's the choice. Well, when I read back through this, I realize that that's not supposed to be will, it's supposed to be well. But they don't have that choice here. So what I can do is I can either tell it to ignore it over here in the proofing group for grammar, or I can just step out of the grammar box, go and fix my word, and then I can resume spell check. Now, it never once captured or caught that word for. So proofreading is important. Now, normally, if you have it set up correctly, it should have captured that. But you need to proofread. To me, this is a reason for proofreading your document, not always depending upon spell check, grammar check to catch it. Now, we've got that much typed in, and we've played around with spell check, grammar check. We've got some more to type in, some more text. So we need to, I've already entered my blank line, and I'm supposed to enter another blank line. Oops, put it in the wrong place, didn't I? Helps if you have your insertion point in the right location. There we go. And we're going to do the next set of listed items. When, question mark, enter. These are not complete sentences, so don't put punctuation at the end of them. I'm going to scroll this up so if you have any trouble seeing it on your screen, you can still see it. Now below that will be our signature line. And I'm just going to save this. Okay. Basically what they've had us do so far is just get all the text typed in. And that's usually a recommended way to do things. So all the text or the copy is there, and then you add the other elements to it. The formatting of characters and paragraphs, the adding of the picture, the border, and so on. Now, remember to be reading throughout these modules so that you are getting the concepts part as well. So we're going to save this. Now, they'll talk about saving this for the first time in your textbook and giving it a name. You can go ahead and click on the Save button, but don't give it a new name. Don't make a copy of it with a different name. Just click on your Save button every time it says to save. Just click on your Save button. Now, we're going to format some characters. And you will read in this section about fonts and font sizes and themes. And they do have a wonderful Consider This section that asks, how do you know which formats to use in a flyer? So they have some wonderful list of things for you to consider when creating your own flyers. we want to change the theme for this particular document. See if I can get my mouse to work with me here. I want to go to the Design tab on the ribbon, and underneath Document Formatting, it goes on forever just about. The first button is Themes, but the theme colors is at the end of all those different kinds of document formats that you see there. Theme colors, because you'll change that, and also theme fonts. Okay, so I'm going to choose Themes, and if you hover over some of these, you could see how it's changing the text in the background. What you want to do is scroll down until you find Slate, and you're going to click on Slate. Now, they're eventually going to have us come back and change the colors. I'm just going to show you now. They'll have us come back and change the colors to the Blue 2 color palette. Not yet, but they will have us do that. Now, I've done my theme. I'll just escape out of that. I'm going to click on the Home tab to take me back to where most of my buttons are for formatting. Now, you can be anywhere inside of this headline and center it. Centers on the paragraph. They also want us to select this first paragraph, washing your hands with soap and water. Now you can either click the left margin area, see how it is a mouse pointer, and just click and drag down to paint that, or you can just double click next to it and it'll get that paragraph. Now I'm going to click away from that for a second and do a double click. Whenever you've got it first selected, you'll have what's called the mini toolbar appear. It may not have what you need to use, however. Like there's not a center on here. There used to be, but there's not a center on here anymore. So you have to go up to your paragraph group and choose the center button. Don't let the screen tips help you identify your buttons. So we've done that with that particular paragraph. Now they want us to select our wash your hands headline, and you can do the same thing over here on the left margin area, where you have what's called a block arrow. I call it a selection arrow because it lets you select stuff. And we still have our little mini toolbar that's hanging out here. Let's see what we're supposed to do with it. We can change the font size to 36, so we can do that here. And well, I lost it, didn't I? I can't turn pages and keep my mouse going here. Let's see. Well, the text is still selected, and I'm just going to reselect it so I can get my mini toolbar back. We're going to choose a different font from Callisto. Now, a point here to make, there will always be two theme fonts, a headings and a body font for any of the themes that you use, which is not to say that you can't go choose different fonts. We're going to here in just a second. But it always gives you an idea that you have a choice. Sometimes they're different fonts. In this case, they happen to be the same, but it could be that your heading font may be bold-faced. It may be a little larger by default for that particular style, the headings, and the body might be not bolded. Maybe it's a size 11 font and so forth. We're going to go through here and locate alphabetically till we get to the Rockwell Extra Bold and click on that. And while we're here, we want to change the case. Well, that little mini toolbar didn't have change case, so you're going to have to go to the font group, and it is the button that has a capital A and a lowercase a, and of course it says change case when you hover over it. Choose uppercase to change that to uppercase text. Now, while it is still selected, we want to apply a font effect or text effect and typography. I love how they add the word typography in there. But we're going to click on the pull down list, and in the second, you can kind of hover and see what this looks like, but in the second row, the fourth one from the left, and you got to make sure you match these names right. So when you're looking at that screen tip, it should be fill white, outline brown, accent color 1, glow brown, accent color 1. And then when you click on it, you've applied it. Now, they tell you to click away from it, then they tell you to come right back in it. So it's kind of a little strange that they make you dance that dance. But while your headline is still showing, we want to change that so that it has a background or shadow effect. So we're going to choose, it's a little paint can spilling paint here in the paragraph group. It says shading when you point at it. We're going to click on that, and the one that you want is in the third column from the right, and it's the next to the last one in the theme colors. Brown, accent 4, darker 25%. Now, underneath that one, we want to select this entire paragraph underneath the headline. I'm just going to, oops, don't triple click, just double. And now I can change that to a red accent font color. So if I were to go to font color up here in the group, it is the second column from the right, and it's next to what we use for the shadow for the headline. Red, accent 5, darker 25%. Now we can also change the font size of this, so they want you to change this to 22. If my little mini toolbar was still here with me, which it will disappear if you drift away from it, you can still go up here to the font group and take care of it there. We're supposed to make the font size 22, so we will. And then it wants us to play with our zoom control just a little bit, so it says click anywhere outside of your selection so you can see it. Your zoom control down here on the lower right hand corner of the status bar will let you play. Plus makes it get bigger, minus makes it get smaller, and you can use the little zoom control bar and just slide it everywhere. Sometimes you want to see how it looks, how it's laying out, and how much space you have left to do something with. We are going to put a picture here where that blank line is, so we still want to make sure that we're not overextending ourselves into 2 pages. So what we're going to do next then, and they want you to change your percentage to 120. So there it is where I can see everything here to select it. Just want to make sure that I can see the how information and the when information. So we're going to select multiple lines. The easiest way to do that is point over here in the left margin area. Your mouse is a little pointing arrow. Click next to how and just hold the mouse button down as you drag down to after handling dirty equipment and garbage. Excuse me. Don't get that last line. If you did, click away from what you selected and go get it again. Don't get the last line. Now, I'm going to leave, I'm trying to hover so I don't lose my little mini toolbar, because I think they want us to play with the mini toolbar for this. So we're going to change the font size to this to 20. Font size 20. Okay, and then we're going to click away from that. We want to select underneath the word how the first lines that are in there, wet through dry hands. We want to select all of those lines, and we want to click on numbering. And numbering is up here in your paragraph group. You will see there's a bullet, and then there's numbering, and then there's outline. You want to choose the numbering. By default, it uses our Arabic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It takes care of the indentation. Now, if you immediately see that you didn't want to do that, immediately see it, you can do the undo button up there on the quick access toolbar. Then the boss comes in and says, hey, wait a minute, that needs to be a bulleted list, and since you've done nothing to this document since you changed it to undo it, you can redo it. Now, if you've done 15 or 20 other things, you have to undo all of those to get to this one. I wouldn't do that. I'd just highlight this and make it a bulleted list. Now, When, we're going to select those lines all the way to after handling and including after handling dirty equipment. And we want to make it a bulleted list. And if your mini toolbar was there, you could choose it from there. I'm just going to click on the bullets there. They don't have us change what the bullet looks like or the spacing or anything like that in this particular exercise. Now, the poor little hyperlink. Since we changed our theme, our colors have changed with us, and now this, instead of it being a blue clickable link, and you can see hold down Control and click to follow the link, we don't really need for it to have a hyperlink here because these are going to be printed out and stuck on billboards and whatnot. So we don't necessarily need that to be a clickable link because nobody's going to be able to click on a piece of paper. So what we're going to do is right click anywhere in that hyperlink and point at remove hyperlink. Click. You've still got the words, but now it's not a clickable link. We want to to center the visit, so just select it and choose center. And let's see, we're going to format some text. So I'm just going to unselect it, and then I'm going to come over here and select it again so I have my mini toolbar. First and foremost, change the font size to 18. And then, while it's still selected, change the color. Okay, take a look at the color that's here. That's the same color that we used on that first major paragraph. Red, accent 5, darker 25%. Click on it. Miss Straffen, I just cannot believe that that's got to be the right color. Okay. While it's selected, let's go up here to the pull down list arrow. See how this is what's selected. This is the red color we were using before. So it retained that color that we needed for this other text area. Just hit the escape key to make the menu go away. The next thing they have us do is highlight the words additional hand washing tips. Do not get the period. You never underline the period unless you're underlining multiple sentences, and then you would get the periods. So I want to choose the underline option. Now, what is the thing that we know about underlining? Well, we've got it ingrained in our heads now that if something's underlined, it must be a clickable link. So if you point at this in a Word document and it doesn't have a clickable link hand on it, then it's just the text. So, so that's just text. Here, if I wanted to go to this, I could highlight that and copy it, paste it into my browser, and we could find out if it's an actual working hyperlink. Now, this next one is how to select words, non-adjacent words, and we've already taken care of adjacent ones there. But before we do that non-adjacent text, we got one little thing else that we want to do here. If you scroll to the top, we want to double click on the word prevent in that first real paragraph that we have. Double click on it, and we're going to italicize it. We can do that from the mini toolbar. Non-adjacent. All right, I like this part. Double click on wet under the how numbered list. Point at lather, hold down the control key, double click, let go of the control key, let go of the mouse button, and then point at scrub, hold down the control key, double click on scrub, let go, hold down control key, double click on rinse, let go, control, double click on dry. And then they want you to boldface these terms. So they're non-adjacent text, and you were able to boldface them very quickly, being able to select that non-adjacent text. So, they tell us to save it again, so we might as well get in the habit of just saving it. Now, the next part or section deals with inserting our picture into our document. And I'm going to break this video up into 2 pieces just so that we have, you're not spending so much time just on the whole thing for an hour, hour and a half, whatever. So I'm going to end this one as part 1 of our Word Module 1 textbook project.